Mechanics are counting on you to ignore these 7 warning signs until it is too late to do anything cheap about them. Every one of these starts as a $50 fix and ends as a $5,000 rebuild if you wait long enough. There are 7 very specific failure modes hiding in these motors that will destroy you financially if you miss them. Sign 3 involves one specific smell that most Mazda owners have noticed and ignored. That smell is the sound of a $5,000 repair warming up. Let's get into it. Number 7. The 100,000-mile asthma attack. You pull up to a red light and your car starts vibrating like it is trying to tell you something important. It is. Your direct injection engine is slowly suffocating. The shop is going to charge you $400 to $800 to fix a problem that would have cost $100 to prevent. The SkyActiv G sprays fuel directly into the combustion chamber. That sounds efficient, because it is. The problem is that traditional port-injected engines spray fuel over the intake valves, and that fuel wash keeps the valves clean. Direct injection skips that step entirely. Oil vapor from the crankcase coats the valve stems with every engine cycle. Over time, it bakes into a hard carbon crust. The valves stop sealing cleanly. The engine loses compression in the affected cylinders. What you feel is a rough, idle, cold start stutters, and a car that hesitates violently when you try to merge onto the highway. According to the Society of Automotive Engineers, direct injection engines accumulate carbon on intake valves at 4 to 5 times the rate of port-injected engines. Most drivers first notice symptoms between 80,000 and 120,000 miles. The fix is walnut blasting. A shop uses a high-pressure media blaster to clean the valves without disassembly. At an independent shop, it runs $250 to $400. At a dealership, budget $400 to $800. A bottle of top-tier fuel at every fill-up slows the buildup significantly. The higher detergent concentration reaches the combustion chamber walls and partially limits the oil vapor residue. Chris in Ohio had a 2019 Mazda 3 with a rough idle at 92,000 miles. 2 shops quoted him transmission diagnostics at $150 a visit before a third mechanic pulled the intake and found the valves coated black. Walnut blast, $320. The car runs like new. The first 2 shops never looked at the valves. The dealership benefits from this diagnosis gap. Direct injection is a feature Mazda advertises for fuel efficiency. The carbon buildup it causes is not mentioned in the same conversation. You find out about it at 80,000 miles when someone finally pulls the intake manifold and shows you what 5 years of oil vapor looks like baked onto valve stems. Carbon buildup presents as transmission hesitation, misfires, or rough idle, all of which generate diagnostic fees and parts replacements before anyone checks the valves. The walnut blast is a low-margin job. Misfire diagnosis is not. A secondary prevention worth knowing. Some SkyActiv owners run a port injection cleaner through the fuel system every 30,000 miles. It deposits a thin detergent film on the intake tract. It does not replace walnut blasting but extends the interval by slowing the buildup rate. A bottle costs $12. The blast it delays costs $300. Just ahead, the part on the front of your engine that looks like a minor fluid leak and eventually snaps your serpentine belt at 70 miles per hour. Number 6. The sweating tensioner. Most cars use a simple, dry, spring-loaded serpentine belt tensioner. Mazda, in their wisdom, designed the SkyActiv with a hydraulic tensioner. That is a great engineering choice when the seals hold. When they fail, and they do, it becomes a quiet catastrophe that most drivers do not catch until they are on the side of a highway. A hydraulic tensioner keeps the serpentine belt at precise tension using pressurized fluid. When the internal seals wear out, the fluid weeps out through the seal surface and runs down the front of the aluminum block. You will see a dark, greasy stain below the tensioner pulley. Most people assume it is a minor leak and leave it alone. Once the tensioner loses enough pressure, the serpentine belt goes slack under load. At low RPM, it just squeals and rattles. At highway speed under hard acceleration, a slack belt can jump the pulley and snap. A snapped serpentine belt kills your water pump output, alternator charging, and power steering simultaneously. That is a tow and a repair bill. According to a technical service bulletin issued by Mazda North America, hydraulic tensioner seal failure is a documented wear pattern on SkyActiv engines. Most failures occur between 60,000 and 90,000 miles. Tensioner replacement at an independent shop runs $120 to $200 in parts and labor. That same repair build at a dealership runs $250 to $350. The tow and emergency roadside repair after a belt snap runs anywhere from $300 to $600 before you have touched the belt itself. Dave in Arizona looked under the hood of his 2017 CX-5 and saw what looked like dark sweat running down the front of the engine block. His mechanic quoted $160 to replace the tensioner. He waited 3 weeks. The belt jumped at 65 miles per hour on the freeway. tow, belt, tensioner, plus the water pump that overheated during the incident, $940. Dealers rarely flag the tensioner leak during routine service because it is easy to miss without a deliberate look, and it does not trigger any fault codes. It is also not in the standard multi-point inspection checklist. Multi-point inspections are designed around common upsell items: air filters, cabin filters, wiper blades, brake fluid. The hydraulic tensioner is not on that list. It is not a regular revenue item until it fails. The car drives fine right up until it does not. That gap between leaking and failing is exactly where the expensive repair lives. The check is free and takes 30 seconds. Open the hood, aim a flashlight at the tensioner pulley on the front of the engine, and look at the metal surface directly below it. Dry metal means the seals are holding. A greasy dark stain means they are not. Most owners never look. Most service technicians do not look either unless the car throws a belt-related fault code. If you are learning something here your dealer never mentioned, subscribe now because we cover this stuff every week. Number 5. The smell that costs $5,000. If you own a 2016 to 2020 Mazda with the 2.5-liter turbocharged engine, a CX-9, CX-5 Turbo, or Mazda 6, pay close attention. This entry is the most important thing you will read today. You park the car after a long drive, step out of the garage, and notice a warm, sweet smell, like maple syrup or pancakes or something baking. You are not imagining it. You are smelling burning engine coolant. And if you keep ignoring it, you will be looking at a cylinder head replacement that starts at $3,000. It climbs toward $5,000 once the machine shop work is factored in. The exhaust manifold on the 2.5 turbo runs at extreme temperatures. On a production batch of these engines, a manufacturing flaw left the exhaust manifold studs under-tightened at the factory. Under repeated heat cycles, the manifold warps slightly at the stud holes. That warping cracks the cylinder head casting at the coolant passage adjacent to the stud. Coolant bleeds slowly into the exhaust port and vaporizes on the hot metal. Mazda issued an extended warranty, Customer Satisfaction Program CSP11, covering this exact failure on affected 2.5 turbo engines. The program extends coverage to 10 years or 100,000 miles from the original sale date for cylinder head replacement at no cost to the owner. The catch is that you must present the vehicle before the symptoms become catastrophic. An owner who notices the sweet smell and requests a pressure test while the engine is still running normally will have the cylinder head replaced under CSP11 for free. An owner who ignores the smell for 2 months and overheats the engine will find the warped block and destroyed head gasket fall outside the program's scope. Marcus in Georgia noticed a faint sweet smell from his 2018 CX-9 after long drives. His dealership found a hairline crack at the number 2 cylinder head stud on a pressure test. Mazda replaced the cylinder head under CSP11. Total cost to Marcus, nothing. His colleague ignored the same smell on an identical engine for 8 weeks. His engine overheated and warped the block. Total repair, $4,800, none of it covered. The dealership service department does not proactively mention CSP11 during oil changes or routine visits. They are not required to. You have to know it exists and ask for it by name. That is not an accident. To check for the smell yourself, park after a long highway drive, turn the engine off, and step out immediately with the hood up. A sweet, slightly burnt caramel smell, distinct from normal hot engine smell, is the indicator. If you smell it consistently after every long highway drive, book a pressure test that day. You can also check the coolant reservoir between services. A reservoir that drops more than a few millimeters between oil changes suggests coolant is going somewhere. Combined with the sweet smell, that is enough to go in immediately. Coming up, the reason your oil dipstick might smell like a gas pump, and what that means for the bearings keeping your engine alive. Number 4, the gas station. Dipstick. Pull your dipstick out right now if you own a high-mileage SkyActiv. Smell it. It should smell like motor oil, slightly burnt, a little bitter. If it smells powerfully like gasoline, or if your oil level is mysteriously rising between changes, you have a high-pressure fuel pump problem. It will destroy your engine bearings faster than almost anything else on this list. The high-pressure fuel pump on SkyActiv engines sits directly on top of the valve cover, driven by a lobe on the camshaft. It pressurizes fuel from 40 to 2,000 psi for direct injection. The internal plunger seals wear over time. When they fail, the pump starts bleeding raw, unburned gasoline past the seals and into the engine oil via the camshaft gallery. Gasoline is a solvent. At low concentrations in the oil, it lowers the viscosity of the lubricant film between moving metal surfaces. At high concentrations, it strips the protective oil film off the cylinder walls and main bearings entirely. The engine starts running metal on metal in the most expensive real estate under the hood. According to Blackstone Laboratories, engines showing fuel dilution above 2% by volume demonstrate measurably accelerated wear on main bearing surfaces and cylinder walls. SkyActiv engines with worn HPFP plunger seals have tested at fuel dilution levels between 4 and 8%. A replacement high-pressure fuel pump runs $400 to $600 in parts. Labor adds another $150 to $250. Total independent shop repair, $550 to $850. A set of spun main bearings from diluted oil starts at $2,000 in labor alone before anyone touches a part. Sandra in Michigan pulled her dipstick on her 2020 Mazda 6 at 67,000 miles and noticed the oil level was a quarter inch above the full mark. The smell confirmed fuel contamination. She brought it in immediately. HPFP replacement, $680. Her mechanic told her the bearings showed no measurable wear because she caught it early. 2,000 miles later and they would have looked different. The smell test costs nothing and takes 5 seconds. Pull the dipstick, hold it 6 inches from your face, and breathe in. You know what motor oil smells like. If it smells like a gas pump instead, that is the answer. Most mechanics do not smell the dipstick during routine oil changes. They check the level and the color. Fuel-contaminated oil at early stages is the right color. The contamination is in the chemistry, not the appearance. The shop that misses it gets the bearing rebuild 4 months later. Drop the sign you have been ignoring in the comments. Let's see which one we all have in common. Number 3, the angry sewing machine. Your Mazda starts up in the morning and sounds completely normal. Or it sounds, for about 3 seconds, like someone dropped loose gravel into a blender. If it is the second one, your timing chain is telling you something important, and the window to fix it cheaply is closing every time you start the car. SkyActiv engines use a timing chain rather than a rubber timing belt, which is genuinely good news for longevity. Chains last longer than belts. The problem is that SkyActiv chains are extremely sensitive to oil pressure and oil quality. The hydraulic chain tensioner maintains chain tension by holding oil pressure. If the oil has degraded or the tensioner feed passage has accumulated sludge from extended intervals, the tensioner loses pressure on a cold start. With reduced tensioner pressure, the chain goes slack for the first few seconds of operation. You hear it slapping against the plastic timing chain guides. The chain stretches incrementally with each cold start slap. A stretched chain eventually jumps a tooth on the cam sprocket. When timing jumps, the pistons and valves collide at engine speed. That is an instant total engine failure. According to Mazda dealership service records, timing chain stretch is one of the 3 most common causes of catastrophic engine failure in SkyActiv engines. Most of these cases occur over 100,000 miles. A timing chain service before failure runs $600 to $1,000 at an independent shop. A replacement engine after the chain jumps runs $4,000 to $8,000 depending on whether a used or remanufactured unit is installed. The used engine option carries its own risk because you cannot verify its oil change history. Brian in Colorado heard the 3-second cold start rattle on his 2015 Mazda, 3 for about 6 weeks before bringing it in. Chain stretch confirmed. Timing chain service, $780. His mechanic showed him the worn guides. They were close, but had not cracked. 2 more months and the guides would have broken, and the chain would have been able to jump. That repair would have cost him the engine. The timing chain rattle specifically on a cold start and clears after 10 seconds is the most actionable warning sign on this list. It is also the one most mechanics dismiss without pulling codes because it leaves no fault code. The shop that tells you it is normal engine noise is the shop that gets the engine replacement job a few months later. Voice memo, the sound on a cold start. If the rattle is present and rhythmic for the first 3 to 8 seconds after startup, you have it on record. A reputable shop will want to hear it on a cold start, which is why it helps to have the recording if the car happens to be warm when you bring it in. Change your oil every 5,000 miles on synthetic, and your timing chain will likely never generate this conversation. And if the cold start rattle is already present, do not panic, but do not wait. Chain stretch that has not yet caused a jumped tooth is fixable. A jumped tooth is an engine. Those are 2 very different repair conversations. Stretch to 10,000 in stop-and-go use and the sludge builds faster than the manufacturer's schedule assumes. Up next, the sign that looks like a broken heater and turns out to be destroying your cylinder walls from the inside. And it does not leave a trace until the damage is done. Number 2, the eternal cold. Engine you get in on a cold morning, drive 15 miles, and the temperature gauge has not moved off the bottom peg. The heater is blowing cold air. Your instinct is that the heater core has failed. That would be the cheap version of this problem. The real version is the coolant control valve, and it is doing quiet, steady damage to your engine every mile you drive it cold. Mazda's SkyActiv uses an electronically controlled coolant control valve to route coolant through the engine and heating circuit. It is a sophisticated piece of engineering that provides precise temperature management. It is also notorious for seizing in the open position, which sends coolant flowing continuously through the heater circuit. That prevents the engine from ever reaching operating temperature. An engine that cannot reach operating temperature runs rich. According to a study by the Oak Ridge National Laboratory, an engine running below optimal temperature consumes up to 15% more fuel per mile. It also generates significantly higher cylinder wall wear rates compared to a fully warmed engine. That extra fuel is not going into more power. It is washing oil off the cylinder walls and out through the crankcase. Your fuel economy also drops noticeably when the CCV is stuck open. If your gas mileage suddenly gets worse with no other explanation, the coolant control valve belongs on the diagnostic list. The engine management system detects the cold reading from the coolant temperature sensor and adds extra fuel to compensate. That extra fuel partially washes the oil film off the cylinder walls on every combustion cycle. Over weeks and months of cold running operation, the cylinder walls develop accelerated wear that does not show up until the engine starts consuming oil and losing compression. According to NHTSA data, coolant control valve failures resulting in chronic under-temperature operation have been flagged across multiple Mazda model years. They are linked to accelerated upper cylinder wear in documented owner complaints. The coolant control valve costs $80 to $120 as a part. Labor to replace it runs 1 to 2 hours at a shop. $120 to $240 in labor. Total repair, $200 to $360. The cylinder wall repair it prevents, honing, new piston rings, and the associated machine shop work starts at $2,500. Angela in Tennessee drove her 2018 Mazda 6 for 4 months with the temperature gauge stuck cold. Assuming it was a heater core issue she would deal with later. When she finally brought it in, the mechanic replaced the coolant control valve in 90 minutes. The valve had been stuck open the entire time. Her next oil analysis showed elevated aluminum particles from cylinder wall wear. The engine recovered, but the wear was measurable. Dealerships do not flag a stuck-open coolant control valve as urgent during service visits because the car drives normally. The symptom, no heat, cold gauge, is easy to dismiss as a comfort issue rather than a mechanical one. The service advisor who tells you it is probably just a heater core is not wrong about the symptom. They are wrong about the urgency. Number 1. The magic disappearing oil. You check your oil. The dipstick is low, a quart down since your last change 3,000 miles ago. You check the driveway, no puddles. You check the exhaust, no visible smoke. The oil is just gone. A shop quotes you $1,000 for a piston ring inspection and potentially $3,000 for a ring replacement. Before you sign anything, ask one question. Has anyone checked the PCV valve? The positive crankcase ventilation valve is a $25 piece of plastic that regulates pressure inside the engine crankcase. Combustion gases blow past the piston rings and pressurize the crankcase. The PCV valve vents that pressure by routing the gases back into the intake manifold to be burned. It is a clean, elegant system until the valve sticks closed. When the PCV valve seizes, crankcase pressure builds. That pressure forces oil past the valve stem seals and piston rings into the combustion chamber where it burns. The exhaust looks clean because modern catalytic converters oxidize the oil vapor almost completely. There is no visible smoke, no puddle, no fault code. The oil just disappears 1 quart at a time while the shop prepares a ring job estimate. According to RepairPal data across Mazda SkyActiv vehicles, PCV valve failure is the most common cause of sudden oil consumption complaints on these engines. It ranks ahead of piston ring wear by a significant margin. The repair is also 14 times cheaper. A PCV valve for a SkyActiv engine costs $18 to $35 at any auto parts store. The replacement takes 10 minutes with basic hand tools. A piston ring job on the same engine runs $2,800 to $4,200 in parts and labor at an independent shop. The dealer equivalent starts at $4,000 and moves up from there depending on what else they find once the engine is disassembled. Kevin in Virginia had his 2016 Mazda 3 quoted at $3,200 for a piston ring job. He was consuming a quart of oil every 1,200 miles. A second mechanic charged him $30 for a PCV valve and 30 minutes of labor. 6,000 miles later, oil consumption was back to normal. The first shop had not checked the PCV valve. Kevin asked why. The response was that ring jobs are more common on high-mileage engines. They are not more common than a stuck PCV valve on a SkyActiv. The ring job is just more profitable. The other symptom to watch: blue-gray smoke on cold startup that clears after 30 seconds. That is oil being drawn into the intake and burning on startup. Most drivers see it on a winter morning start and dismiss it as condensation. It is not condensation. Condensation is white and thin. Oil smoke is blue-gray and slightly oily smelling. Catch it early with a $25 part. Miss it for another 10,000 miles, and the oil-fouled spark plugs and carbon-caked combustion chambers turn a $25 fix into a $500 conversation. A $30 diagnosis that saves you $3,200 is the most important thing on this list, and it is the last thing a shop wants to find first. The difference between a Mazda that runs 200,000 miles and one that needs a rebuild at 120,000 is not luck. It is paying attention to the right things at the right time. 7 warning signs. 7 opportunities to spend a few $100s instead of a few thousand. The shop is counting on you to miss them. Now you know what to look for. Hey, thanks for watching. If you found these Mazda warning signs helpful, let us know in the comments and tell us your mileage and whether you have caught any of these. Want to see the 7 maintenance jobs your Mazda dealer overcharges for every time? Click on the left. I'll see you there.